Evan gonna rock things up here with a build which we're very much used to. The Hexes in conjunction with the Undying and Ruin. Again, you can pressure out gens so easily that Ruin is a no-brainer crowd control because, you know, windows are your main form of counterplay against this killer. So you're able to deal with that relatively effectively. Foreman found out here, but right now has a lot of kind of resource to work with. Provided that you have a good amount of junk in between you and the Hillbilly, you're going to be just fine! There's an opportunity for the curve for Evan. Yeah, the opportunity for the curve for Evan was presented, but not quite going to be taken instead. Now Foreman makes quite a lot of distance. Gen Progress is going to start off relatively slow, but this is a long-term investment, because the Ruin's already gone. And so now that's just not a problem for the rest of the game. Evan's only really playing with, you know, 2 perks now, the Eruption and the Crowd Control. Great crouch tech to miss that one. Drops the pallet as well at the pallet gym. Now Foreman is running right back into the dead zone from before. Actually, no, there's a pallet by the cars here. You drop this one, gonna get broken. I wonder if Foreman really has anything else to work with. I think this is finally the moment where the down comes through.
I think we might be trying to make a locker play here, try and force a whiff on the lockers, but Foreman's on the wrong side, and it is going to be the down early on. Now, there's actually a decent amount of gen progress, given that they also cleansed both both of the ruins. So that is, I'd have to say, a pretty good start, all things considered. And Foreman didn't even use all that many resources during that chase. A few pallets here and there, but all in all, not a whole lot there.
Yeah, there is a corner of the map which is going to be a little dead. The problem is that is sort of where the hook is located as well. Also note that Foreman is your for the people player. You would love to use that in order to stop someone getting tunneled out so effectively. Now Foreman is the tunnel out, right? Again, the decisive rule comes into play on account of crossbreak. Well, hey, we just jump scare Tori. Let me solo Che has been discovered here, but is in a relatively strong part of the map. Where were you going? Where were you going? Let me solo chase. He just ran into the middle of nowhere. Now Evan's going to return back to the hook.
Chase. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, things are going from bad to worse for 0Practice. Oh, a scary dodge from good KN. And we got a pallet to play around here, and a nice stun to maybe just buy a little more time, save a little bit of momentum. We got another pallet here to play with, but this is the dangerous pallet to play with, especially when this door is closed. The crouch tech to force the pallet break, but there's nothing else to work with here. And there's the back rev.
Nothing else but, you know, squatting on the floor, which is a surprisingly effective way to deal with a crazed hillbilly that's trying to chainsaw you. Now the generator completed. Considering how bad that situation looked for 0Practice, I don't feel like it was necessarily capitalized on quite as much. Although we really have Let Me Solo Chase as an injury, which is far from ideal. It's not something that Hillbilly demands, having a bunch of injured survivors on the field. Might just make Let Me Solo Chase a little more wary of things going forward. The crowd control also has been cleansed now, so Evan is literally rocking just an Eruption. Right now has 0 kicks, so, you know, you're playing against a completely perkless killer, which is a rough time, and Foreman caught out on this rock. Evan clearly has the mechanics, has the muscle memory to lock in these flicks and curves on the Billy. We're going to get a hook onto Foreman. Basement opportunity was there, but takes the quick hook instead. You should be able to rush back with that one reasonably quickly. What I reckon here, if you're Evan, what you're happy with, if Foreman can get tunneled out and only one more gen gets completed, you're on track for a solid 4K1. And let me search it. Huh. Rarely does that happen. Rarely do we mess up the fun bus quite like that. That's the injury from earlier actually paying off dividends here. This is a rough spot for 0Practice now, but they've recovered from spots like this before.
And Alkali got the killer blind. And the Devin with the firecracker, and Evan maybe lose him, maybe he wants to go protect the slug. Foreman getting caught out. This is not the survivor you want to get. This is not who you want to get caught out. We do know Alkali's still in the area, possibly for a pallet save, but Foreman is dead on hook, and I don't think that decisive is still up.
Even if it could be, there's no reason that you can't just play a bit safely here, wait up for a minute. Let me solo chase has been picked up off the floor. Evan looking around for that one, because that would have been your ideal way. Okay, how can I maximize efficiency here? You can pick up and hook let me solo chase, and then realistically you probably have time to grab Foreman as well. Other gen over in the corner going to be completed. The DS timer. Generally, the players will like to keep their timers either by their teammates or just a little mental note to time out a minute. So Foreman is going to be dead now. This is 4K2. Simple as that. You look at gen progress, or you just think about gen progress, and there really isn't any. You have an extra hook onto Good Khan, which is, you know, maybe a surprise tool that can help you later. And yes, there's no hard 3 gen, but you do have a split of 3 gens, kind of over on the left side of the map, and it's not like you struggle to get between the gens. That's kind of your entire gimmick on Hillbilly on account of the gigantic chainsaw that you got revving around all over the shop.
A good KN gets caught out. Nice pallet stun, another one from good KN. Getting the stun onto the Billy, but Evan's gonna try and cut him off at this pallet. Does so successfully, zones him away. Now there's nothing here. Injured, this could just be an M1, but it is gonna be the chainsaw instead. Style points for Evan, and another hook for Exodus.
Nice little microplay from Evan as well. Knows that the last opportunity Good Khan has to dodge would be to maybe run around the tree, so actually just go slightly to the left of the tree. It sounds trivial, but, you know, we see that some Hillbilly dodges come out by literally just crouching or being like slightly different side of the palette. So these micro adjustments from Evan shows a great level of experience. Also on account of that down, was able to proc Eruption, you know, keep these gens down. For Evan, I feel like if a 4K1 would almost feel like a loss here, right? You know, you're in a 4K2 position. That would put you in absolutely fantastic standing going forward. And if you're able to catch out another injured survivor, remember, Let Me Solo Chase was on the floor not too long ago. It's almost like Evan is just playing with his food by allowing him to live. No pallet at this tile. That was used in the first chase by Foreman earlier. So now Let Me Solo Chase goes down. And yeah, you're fantastic at slugging as Hillbilly. You've taken out the Tenacity survivor, whether you know that or not. So, you know, it's really not much problem now in just patrolling between these generators and slowly eking down the pressure until the survivors have to crumble.
Absolutely, and I want to say, as we get into this other chase against Alkali, who hasn't really been spotted a whole lot during this match so far, Evan decides to break chase, wants to go back for the pickup. But I was going to say, no, this is the other injured survivor. This is good KN getting caught out on the way into no man's land, going to try and get the save, but there's nothing here. There's nothing to work with. And I was going to say these survivors have been doing a great job of recovering from the pressure, but it might just be too little too late. And Evan has, I was going to say props to Evan for intentionally or not circumventing that cross-ping decisive strike rule. Has not gotten a whole lot of value, or has not gotten any value, I should say, this entire trial, and that's 25% of the perks that 0Practice has brought out of their 16. And there's, oh, that was dirty. That was dirty.
Yeah, well, I need a shower, you need a shower, and Evan needs to go into a psych ward for that one. There's a crazy nice flick. The pallet drop comes out, but it's not going to be enough anyway. This is your 4K2. This is secured for Evan. This was a fantastic Billy game from Evan, and now you can see exactly why Exodus picked the Billy. Evan just playing with so much experience, so much swagger, so much confidence. Plus, we find Let Me Solo Chase hiding out anyway. So now you can give him a little bit of a run for your money, should you so wish. But no, I give so much credit to Evan in this. I also want to say that with some amount of respect, I don't hate the 0Practice macro there. They were fine relatively in unhook situations, in, you know, picking up other survivors, etc., etc. But some of their micro was strange, you know, leaving tiles maybe a bit too early, not quite check spotting them properly, getting caught out in situations you really wouldn't expect these survivors to get caught out on. Evan just playing bumper cards at the end. There's a little celebration. 4K2 is an absolutely fantastic result for a Hillbilly. I'd reckon 4K1 would be about the average, but I've always maintained that the difference between 4K2 and 4K1 is the biggest difference of any win con in the game, even more so than like a 4K1 to 4K0, you know what I mean? So Evan being able to get the 4K2 is massive there. And Survivor's 0Practice killer is going to have a hell of a task to do now.
Absolutely. It's that was like you said, absolute praise towards Evan. Did an amazing job here, and praise towards 0Practice where it is deserved. They did a really good job recovering in a lot of those situations, and unfortunately, like you said, just some of the chases weren't there. And I think, I mean, I think that going to be a really tough task for whoever is playing killer for 0Practice, because like you said, the difference between 4K2 and 4K1 is the biggest difference in the game, and it was close. 0Practice maybe had a chance or two to get that fourth generator done, but it's gonna be up to their killer now to decide, are they going to allow the four generators to get done? What kind of strategies are you expecting to see from both sides coming into this next trial?
It's going to be mostly decided by the killer. For Survivor, for the Survivor side, the only real point is you don't need to respect three gens at all, because you don't care about it, right? Normally, breaking a three gen is a massive priority. If you have to play for like 5 gens, you don't even have to do that. You have to play for 4 gens. So 3 gens is going to be completely irrelevant. You do not care about 3 gen yourself because that's the win con. For killer, you have to slug. You have to slug really, really hard. You simply aren't able to afford, even if you get your first down early. Normally, what happens if you get a super early first down, you camp to second stage and then go levy some pressure around the map and then tunnel out when they're taken off the hook. Right? You can't even afford to do that because the survivors are able to do gens with relatively reckless abandon. They don't need to worry about getting into an end game. I think my favorite stat was from the Winter Circuit, when Arianda was playing, where they were the team that did the most generators, but obviously they didn't win. And you might be thinking, well, how does that work? How can you do the most gens on average but still lose? Because the idea of you win by doing gens is not wrong, but it's slightly misleading. You know, you do have to focus on resets, you have to focus on chases, you have to focus on rotates and the macro as a whole, etc., etc. The problem now is that Exodus survivors don't need to care about that macro all that much. They can commit everything. They don't need to focus on resets or even necessarily totems or anything like that. If they just want to full send gens, they can do that. And in theory, the 0Practice killer can stop them. But theory and reality are often quite detached from one another.
Yeah, one thing I kind of want to hone in on as another strategy point. We're looking at the lobby right now and we see that Evan is not playing Survivor, which means that the team of Exodus likely did some scrims amongst themselves, and they know that Evan can circumvent the decisive strike with the cross ping rules. So I'm curious to see if they bring decisive strike, and if so, how many, because they don't have to bring 4 decisive strikes. And as we saw last trial, the 4 decisive strikes were 4 wasted perk slots. So I'm curious to see, are these survivors going to be bringing decisive strike, and if if they are, how do they use it? If not, well, they probably have some other tricks up their sleeves to eke out this win condition.
I feel like then we're getting into a level of game theory that maybe we're not entirely cut out for, because you can mind game the mind games. What I was about to say is decisive, even if bought on 4 survivors, is never really a wasted perk slot because the sheer knowledge that there are 4 decisives on the field, or that there could be 4 decisives on the field, means that, well, you're just not able to tunnel anyone out effectively. Because that's something within the rule set, you can't do that. But then for the survivors, I see the meaning of like, well, the killer thinks that we're going to bring 4 decisives. We're not forced to bring 4 decisives. Why don't we just bring no decisives? But the threat of the DS is going to stop them from tunneling anyway, right? But then you go back, and then the killer suddenly calls that out, and you see the amount of layers of inception that we've gotten ourselves into, right? I feel like it's a level of development that we've not quite seen yet, and I do think that in a Billy set, you are better off just bringing all the decisives anyway. You know what I mean? Any target normally against the high tier killers like a spirit or a nurse or a blight, you have your one tunnel me out of the game target. With the allowed perks that you have, generally things like a decisive or a sprint burst or whatever things where it's like, I'm fine with dying first, I'm just going to make you work for it. But then you have that ability on every survivor. That's really, really strong.
Absolutely, and as we load into the game, we have Yumiko playing the killer for 0Practice against the survivors of Exodus, CWCX, Laker, Deco, and Gree, and already into a chase. First chase in a very similar position to last game, and I think this is almost the exact same tile, maybe rotated slightly differently, but it looks like possibly leaving the chase early wants to go pressure somewhere else. Yeah, just leaving that chase.
Yeah, has a bit of a gander around the map. Sees entirely what can be found here. Survivors aren't prioritizing totems, but the gem progress is a bit slow. That is sort of because Yumiko is playing around the ruin and recognizing, if I can't immediately down you guys, I'm just not going to commit to that chase. Because Yumiko has to play for instant chases, fast downs, and a punch and a pear tree, and is getting none of them. None of the survivors are presenting themselves as a clear opportunity. The Undying is gone, so no practical change to the perks, but obviously there's the threat of not having a crowd control or a ruin. You can tell that the comms of Exodus are really strong right now. That they are always informed as to where the killer is, and they're not caught off guard at all. You know, CW at this jungle gym just completely not caught off guard, knew that Yumiko was coming because someone had called it out earlier. That's great comms.
Yeah, and against a high mobility communicator or a high mobility killer, the communication is so important. We have Bloodlust coming in just from holding the chainsaw so long, as we back CW into a corner. Not quite able to get the down just yet. Bloodlust 2 now in effect. Finally getting the down with the chainsaw over in the comp corner, but we have two generators that are well over 50% progressed.
Yeah, CW didn't quite have the level of resources. Played the jungle gym in the corner and then ran to the other corner of the map expecting there to be, a filler or something like that, but didn't have anything. A surprisingly good chase considering that Bro was playing without a resource at any point in time. But it does slow things right
Oh,
the
no.
hell down. No!
Oh,
Well,
no.
we found Deco in the basement!
Oh,
no!
No.
That's a disaster! That is actually a disaster!
Oh no, that is unfortunate for Exodus getting caught out in the basement. This is now going to be a very dangerous unhook that you have just gifted to the other side, and that is just a scary place to be against a Billy.
Scary's one word. Downright terrifying, and is another.
Oh no!
And now we found Laker as well.
Caught out at the Z wall.
I mean, hey, look, the Z wall is the.
No!
I was about to say the Z wall is the strongest tile in the game, but I'm gonna shut up now.
Okay, the Z wall being the strongest tile in the game, that is propaganda from like 2 seasons ago with that one Spitz clip, and he needs to stop. That was one clip.
Yeah. I do understand, right? Okay, right. How do you get yourselves out of this hole if you're Exodus? I mean, you shouldn't have been in it in the first place. That's the blunt of it. I think that Deco is being thrown to the wolves right now. There is a mutual understanding that a basement hook against the Billy is just not really something you can save from, at least not if the Billy is not very busy with something else. Gree's taking this chase. It's got to be a long chase as well, because CW is working the gen. Maybe Laker is rotating towards Deco for the unhook. If so, it's not going to be anytime soon, right? Gree juking quite well right now, and has these cars and his power to play with, which would be a bit awkward for the Billy to curve with, but he's not going to curve. He's going to go right back to the basement at perfect time.
Oh no. Perfect timing, perfect game sense from Yumiko. Gets the hit onto Deco, knows that Laker has to be somewhere nearby still, but isn't even gonna bother, just wants to go for the slug. Or go for the tunnel out.
Okay, right. If Deco has a strong chase here, Exodus have just about made their recovery. Deco did not have a strong chase there, so Exodus have not recovered in the slightest. But the decisive strike does come out. That's the power of it. That's the only decisive, for reference, that can be used now. If any other survivor is able to use the decisive, they're not able to utilize it. Deco injured up in this very small room with this very not strong pallet. Crowd control still up, so the window is blocked as well. Deco had to play for the start and got it, and now has the smash hit all the way to the other corner of the map. Hang on, Deco. I might have been slandering you for no reason, and then we have to give up the tunnel out.
Well, that is so unfortunate. I think Yumiko made a calculated gamble there. We do find Deco again, but I think Yumiko made a gamble. Say, I'm just going to force the decisive and make it so I don't have to worry about it anymore, and I'll just get the tunnel out quickly. He's not in a strong spot or anything. But Deco putting up an absolute performance here. Oh my god. And the generators are getting done. There's 2 generators done, 2 more on the way, and this is looking like it's going to be the set going the way of Exodus.
I'm looking at these. Are these 2 separate gen? Yes, they are!
And that's the set win for Exodus.
I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry. Exodus don't win this. But, like, they did anyway. That's one of the craziest things I've seen in a long time. You genuinely have. You catch Deco in the basement. Laker has to go into the basement while injured to get it. You eat the decisive inexplicably instead of getting the guaranteed Lara down in the basement, and then you lose. Nah, 0Practice. I don't know, guys. I really don't know about that one. The decision making, perhaps not quite the level that we would like it to. You know, they all have the opportunity to recover on Dark Lord, right? Dark Lord is their pick, and clearly there's some flashes of brilliance on this team. So if there's ever an opportunity to come back, it's going to be then. But God, oh God, man, oh man, this is not the way that it was supposed to go for either team, honestly, right? 4K2 is already an exceptional Billy result that Exodus was able to obtain, but somehow 0Practice were on the cusp of beating even that out.
Yeah, and I don't even think it was a horrible decision making. I think it was just Yumiko took one too many gambles that didn't pay off. But now we've got Gree here at the pallets, forces the break. Crowd control could be crowd control not in effect. Ruin is the hex that is in effect. Pallets just getting broken. Yumiko doing some cleanup work with the overheated chainsaw, and just trying to make his way over.
Look in the basement again. Nah, someone's in the basement. Trust me. Just go in the basement. It's like a clown car of survivors in there.
Oh my god!
See what
no! And then he just leaves. Okay. Sorry, that was a bit of a strong reaction from me. But here we have CW seen for the first time since he was hooked. And now that we have this door open, this window does get very strong. And this pallet in here does get a lot safer to play around. And Yumiko tries going for the chainsaw around the corner, but the auto-targeting hits the door instead. And it's just a chainsaw back over, and now it's Gree doing the same exact thing, running over to this safer tile, and Yumiko with the prediction second-guessed himself, doesn't get the down because of it, and it is forced to leave once again to stop this generator from being done.
Has got to go and has got to go now. You know, your attention's being drawn in so many spots. The strange thing is that Ruin is still up as well. So I'd be impressed not only if the survivors complete another generator, but can complete it through the Ruin. It seems like that could be the case. Laker having to hop the locker at the... Yumiko does not care, bro. Yumiko does not care about Laker in the slightest. Wants Gree so bad, badder than anyone has been wanted ever, basically. You know, we're trying to catch
I
our
think it's
CW.
more so he wants a slug more than anything.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can pick Laker out of the locker and drop him, you know, and then just get the Mori off at the end, should you so wish, right? The game is already lost here. Yumiko really is playing for rent money at this point. Being taken on a little bit of a ring around a rosy tour by CW. The counterplay to Billy is so strange because, you know, sometimes the Billy is able to get some absolutely fantastic hits off on you. And then sometimes, like, you know, he just trips over a pebble. And then it feels like he can't really do anything, right? And it's just like, it's like a weird game of whack-a-mole right now. Instead of moles, it survives. Instead of a hammer, it's a chainsaw. Yumiko isn't really scoring all that high.
You know, maybe he would score higher if he did use the hammer that he has to play whack-a-mole. But, a nice attempt at the curve, but CW is able to get away, and they're just playing so aggressively. It's like they're able to read Yumiko's mind. They know exactly when he wants to give up the chase, and they're just like, okay, he needs to give up chase, and then they're just going about their day.
I feel like they're just toying with him at this point, right? Like, they're not cleansing the ruin. They aren't really respecting him whatsoever. You know, they almost have the last gen done through the ruin, which is a tremendous gameplay, right? Finally, Grease going to be
there
caught.
we go.
That one felt personal.
Oh,
but the
was
last
it
gen
there?
yeah, last gen gets completed anyway. We really are playing for stat padding at this point for Exodus. And CW continuing to give Yumiko the runaround. It's been a really rough set, a very rough set for 0Practice. But again, Dark Lord is where they can bring it back. You know, Exodus winning on their pick. Okay, cool, right? Still two evenly matched teams. Still should be far more than all right to go the distance.
Yeah, this is a bit difficult to watch, if I'm gonna be honest. Exodus just, like you said, toying with Yumiko the entire time. They knew where the ruin was for quite a while. They just didn't bother cleansing it. And now Grease back up. Laker probably got that pickup, and CW just going for the chase, just running him in circles. It's unfortunate to see a kill. Oh no, not the teabag too. No. Oh, this feels illegal. Oh no.
That was a personal change. So that was Yumiko going like, bro, please stop. Laker and Green like they're just gonna run themselves off through the exit gate here instead of playing for anything crazy on CW. We're waiting for Gree to get back. You know, Laker is a good teammate after all. Wants to really see the rest of the team succeed. Unless your name is CW, in which case, you know, go on the hook, buddy. What's that going to be in total? I think that's 7 stages.
Looks like it. 7 stages, 2 kills.
Yeah, 7 stages that Yumiko was able to achieve, which even by even if you didn't have such a nasty win con to play for, it's still just a fantastic performance from Exodus too. So, you know, maybe my pred at the start is somewhat correct, but of course we still have another set to play. That was Exodus's pick. 0Practice on the Dark Lord should be a relatively fun matchup to see as well.
I mean, on the topic of predictions, mine is already wrong because I predicted a 0Practice 2-0. So, oops.
Is that all you have to? Is that all you have to say for yourself? Whoops.
Yep, that is all I got to say for myself. Leave it to the guy with a surprisingly average ability to predict the future. And yeah, we should have gotten Dyer in here to give us his predictions. I always like putting him on the spot, and then he's always right, and I'm always wrong.
Yeah, bit of a shame. The only problem that I would say going into this one, having a look at the stats page, the most played killer for Exodus is actually the Dark Lord. So despite 0Practice selecting this one, their most played killer is actually Nightmare. So there's not much overlap between those two, to be perfectly honest. And it's clear that even if they didn't pick X, they still have a lot of experience on Dark Lord regardless. So it's not going to be so much for a walk in the park, right? We're going to have to see off the rip exactly what... We're going to have to see off the rip exactly what... I believe Yumiko will be picking up Killer again for 0Practice here. Exactly what he can achieve here.
And something I want to point out with Yumiko playing the killer again is you just spent the last 10 minutes getting absolutely bullied. That's gotta affect your mental. That's gotta affect your decision making. That's going to affect a lot of things. And what's really going to be important here is Yumiko's ability to just take a deep breath and reset. Say, okay, that was the last trial. This is a new one. It's okay. We're starting fresh. I can do this.
I mean, you know, that's a very positive outlook on things. Maybe a bit less positive when you realize that right now Dark Lord has a 75% 4K rate, which is, you know, maybe not so ideal if you're just about to have to go against it. But, you know, we don't have to think about that too much, right, guys? We really don't need to consider it. But yeah, no, relatively even these teams seem to be, and I do enjoy seeing that just more and more as time goes on. Remember that we have a very long day today, so we have this 3 o'clock match between Exodus versus 0Prac, 4:30 between Ascent and Aegis, and then we have some big name playoff games later as well. So make sure not to miss it. You know, we're being treated this weekend. We're being treated to a very, very a very popular weekend for DBDLeague. We had Friday matches, and it's like, since when do we have Friday matches? And now we have, you know, our Saturday where we're just getting things off to a great start. You know, Will's so happy that he's flying through the airport soon, and you know, it's all good. And it's a very fantastic weekend of matches that we have. So make sure to keep tuning in. Of course, make sure if you haven't already to join the Discord, subscribe to the DBDLeague YouTube channel, and of course our LAN is going ahead, but for any extra support that you may offer, anything that you can give to just make the event and then the rest of DBDL as kind of strong and as popular as possible, just so that we can put on the best content for you guys, !point LAN, and you can donate whatever you can. So thank you so much for joining us while we wait for this next matchup to load, because it is taking rather a minute.
It is. It looks like our survivors are ready. I think we're just waiting on a rule clarification. That could be all we're waiting for, but looks like we might be loading in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Just had a quick rule clarification, then we are going in. While we are loading in, on the topic of the LAN though, what are you most excited for with the LAN?
I fear I'm not allowed to. No. I would say the social side of it. Obviously, working the event will be a bit of a dream come true. You know, to go to another country and do a live event, that's fantastic. But I think the social side, the community coming together and being able to put a face to a name. Esports is such a strange... It's such a strange sport. It brings such a... And I'd consider sport, maybe in the loosest term, right? But, you know, it brings together so many people from so many different backgrounds. And it brings together so many people from so many different backgrounds, and being able to put the faces to the names and, you know, actually realize that there's a human on the other end of the little Discord icon that comes up whenever they speak is a good thing. That, however, it's a very sentimental discussion that we can save for another day, because right now we got to focus on Yumiko. Yumiko sure as hell has to focus, because his team is down 0-1 in this series. Looking around the corner, see if there are any survivors stealthing. it feels like stealth has gotten way more popular as a general strat against the stronger killers, and I think that Dark Lord in comp is slowly, I wouldn't say he's at that tier yet, but is slowly rising to tier of things like not a Nurse or a Blight, but like a Spirit and a Hillbilly. You know, super popular, played all the time, and can put up some amazing results and numbers. We finally found our first survivor, Gree here. Hellfire is the way to go, but a bit of a wild shot from Yumiko. And again, you get so heavily punished for missing any of your abilities, but specifically the Hellfire on Dracula. Gree makes an interesting pull there, tries to maybe bait the pounce from the wolf, but doesn't really work out. Instead, just runs into him, eats an M1. Gen Pressure is good, and this is a chase of the corrupt gens, but Gree drops a pallet on the wrong side. Sure as hell gets punished for that. So, you know, about even Stevens, that we can call it there, but it's going to be a pretty, I was going to say an isolated hook, but Yumiko does have the agitation, so is going to drag Gree kicking and screaming into a more advantageous spot on the map.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that's pretty advantageous. Basement with Hellfire is deadly.
Let's not misplay the basement this time. One thing I wanted to point out there is I don't think that was a weird choice by Gree. Gree recognized that he was kind of in a really bad, running towards a bad corner of the map. There was nothing there, and just was like, okay, I'm just gonna take the M1 and get all the distance I can to something else, rather than having to get hit behind the hill and not make it anywhere. We do have a generator get done, and Yumiko immediately teleports back to the basement, wants to cut off any potential save. We do have an early pallet drop trying to get the stun onto the bats. But it is just going to be Yumiko kicking the gen, coming back over. Going for the pallet block with that add-on. Gets a nice M1 in the dog form, back into the bats, trying to just protect this basement hook. We have someone down here. This would be a perfect time for the Hellfire, but doesn't get anything. He gets there just a little bit too late, not able to get a double hit. And it is going to be a safe unhook.
Honestly, for the survivors, that's the best case scenario you could really ask for, right? You get the pull at the very last second, so you don't get double hit with the Hellfire. You're able to dodge, right? You get another gen complete in the background as well. I don't think the Gree has anything else to work with here, so barring a crazy dodge, should be caught out here, not going to be able to quite make distance to the pallet. Is on a pallet, and the third person camera peek, like, you have to be ready for that. Nice flick comes out, so we get an injury as well. Yumiko's applying some really good pressure in the early game. Obviously, he has to be a bit careful to pick up on the pallet, but no one's going to come over this time. The interesting thing, despite having the agitation for the basement, doesn't go for it this time. Instead, puts Gree on a, not a pain resonance, actually a gift of pain hook. 3 gens completed, however, for the survivors. It's clear that they are forgoing healing and resetting in order to do gens. This is a gamble, and I'm not sure if it's one that will pay off, because we have found another injured survivor in the corner. The moment that Gree gets picked up, then, you know, there's going to be instant pressure coming back out onto that hook. So maybe the survivor's getting a smidge greedy here.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. They could. That's the other side of the coin. You had such a great first trial. Overconfidence is something you have to concern yourself with. Yumiko tries to go for the prediction, but Gree decides to just run straight into him, give him the M1 instead.
That's
and
still
another
doing
generator gets done. Another generator gets done. Overconfidence isn't really an issue when you are just doing stuff anyways. Pallet drop, and it is going to be the down and the out onto Gree, but CW gets picked up, and the survivors just have one more gen left to do.
Yeah, there's no 3 gen either. There's no 3 gen. This is the weird thing, because Gree's individual chases, if we're being honest, weren't fantastic. But that didn't really matter, because the coordination was so good, it never really felt like Gree was being too, like doted on by the other survivors is the exact word I'm looking for. And Yumiko's not been able to find the reset either, so Deco and CW are actually quite safe right now. They can play their chases relatively casually. Laker maybe not, because you have found in fact the one injured survivor, kind of the one individual which you were not supposed to let get found. Now Deco and CW have a problem. Yumiko is going to try and drag this hook as far as possible into the current gen spread, just to continue to apply as much pressure as possible. But yeah, someone's going to have to be taken off these gens to get saved. And that means that the other person, provided that they're in chase, is also not going to be able to work gens here, right? Yumiko doesn't have a 3-gen per se, but does have like a fine split on one side of the map. So survivors might struggle to actually complete the final generator.
Yeah, like you said, not a perfect 3-gen, but I'd say this is about the best. I'd say this is the next best thing you can ask for. And just like you said, someone has to go for the unhook while someone else is getting chased. And that is why you see so much tunneling. It occupies so much time, and a nice hellfire from Yumiko onto Deco. And now it's going to be followed up by the pounce, but an amazing dodge. Body block comes through, and that was just in fourth plays from both sides, taking swings at each other. And ultimately, it is Yumiko that comes out on top. Another gift of pain given this time to Deco, and it's just gonna be the bat form back over to these generators. Yumiko is aware that they don't necessarily want to heal, they just want to crank the gens, and knows that someone is going to be over here. Laker probably ran well in advance, and yes, it is going to be CW that is caught out, but it's just going to be a kick with the eruption before teleporting back over to this window closest to the unhook. And now a down here, and that is going to proc the eruption. Laker getting spotted out. Bat form just to stay right on Laker's back. The pounce, not even needed. It is just going to be the M1 to proc that eruption. But Yumiko, taking quite far away from the generators, does have to leave the slug here. And it is just going to be looking for this other survivor at Shack, possibly no. Just needs to protect this generator.
Right, that was an attempt at stealth from CW, not a good one, but you know, it was tried anyway, and we catch out CW there as well. This is just kind of like a horrible domino effect now from the survivors. This is why getting the 3v1 early is so unbelievably valuable. You know, imagine that there's just one more survivor, just one more player right now who's being a bit of a pest on gens, is maybe taking hits, right? It's just not really an option that you have, and so now Yumiko is more than comfortable just continue accruing at these stages. And again, the survivors, they do not care about resets unless they're resetting each other and are just 99ing it so that they can finish the heal at the same time on each other so as to not give away their position. Then like they are still just cranking gens. They're going for win con. It shows some confidence in their killer side that they really, really think that they can 4K1, so they are doing everything in their power for a 4K0.
I like this from Yumiko. He knows that the survivors know he's probably going to try and protect these generators, and is instead looking up by the bus where Deco does in fact come in from. So you see the game sense coming in from Yumiko, but the timing just wasn't there. And Exodus is able to get the save on the hook, but now forced to run away because the call out is there that the Dark Lord is approaching. Yumiko now in the dog form, just trying to spot out someone here. We know that, I believe it was CW was over here just moments ago. This is tricky because the survivors didn't go for the reset. They are all one tap away from going down onto the ground, and that is scary. And especially just like that, one mistake and you are down.
Another consideration I guess I'd make is the gift of pain, right? You know, not only is healing gonna take longer because you're mangled, but then also when you get healed, you're gonna do gens about, I believe 16% is the exact number, slower anyway. So maybe that perk is kind of forcing the survivors to be like, okay, well, we don't really have a choice, you know, we can't reset each other because it will take forever, and we're going to do gens at a snail's pace, right? They, however, are doubling up this final gen, and are they actually gonna do it? There's an agitation in play. Lakers sticking on it for the last second and barely gets that gen done. Deco gets up with the adren, and the 4K0 is secured. They went all in for it. They're not gonna get out, of course, but you know, one more generator by the skin of their teeth, and you even blind a dog for your troubles. Well, maybe the dog didn't actually go blind, but you know, a man can dream.
Yeah, that's when you have a 75% 4K rate on a killer and you know this, you also know that you're just playing to get as many generators done as possible. And they sacrificed everything for it, and I gotta say, well played to both sides on this result. And here we go. We're gonna get a Mori.
Yes. That we are, and victory is going to taste quite sweet for Yumiko here. Maybe not as sweet as the blood, but, you know, you never quite know. That being said...
Enjoy your red wine.
It's just, yeah, we need to... We keep an eye out for our sponsors, you know. It's just red wine, guys. He's just drinking wine. It's okay. But no, I mean, we can see exactly why 0Practice picked the Dark Lord. They were very comfortable. I feel like the micro... kind of in contrast from last game, the micro and the chases specifically from Yumiko were fantastic. They were second to none. It felt like Exodus was always getting mind game. They were always getting outplayed. The, you know, Hellfire hits were coming out in the corner leading into a 2-tap. You know, the TP was being used to properly body block for pallets and windows so they can't be utilized by survivors. There was really a mastery of the chase from Yumiko on Dark Lord. Like, Yumiko has the chase figured out. There's no problems there. Exodus really, to put it nicely, sucked in the 1v1. They were not having good chases at all. But Exodus have the teamwork, and this is what I'm talking about. Exodus are just a more experienced team, a more well-oiled machine. So even if their individual components aren't quite performing up to par, they're still a unit. And, you know, their gears are still turning. They're still firing on all cylinders.
Absolutely, and I think that showed best with how they performed under pressure. I mean, Gift of Pain, as you pointed out, kind of forces you to play injured. Whereas you would want a perk, if you're playing against a perk like Thanatophobia, you would want to try and heal, but you can't do that with Gift of Pain. And so there was always that health state pressure on the survivors of Exodus, and they were still able to get a lot of things done. And that's what made that last trial feel like an absolute slugfest. Because, yeah, Yumiko had an amazing micro, amazing chases. And Exodus had amazing macro. They were able to be in the right place at the right time. They had the communication on point. They were doing the things they needed to do to get the objective done. And that just made that entire trial feel like an absolute slugfest. A slugfest in
Objective-based game,
like
right?
a fighting term, not like a they're all on the ground.
Thank you for the clarification. I do like having to explain DBD to people that don't play it and then just saying words and they're like, what the hell do you mean by that? What is slugging? You'd have to be there. You wouldn't get it. I'm interested to see. Again, we know that Exodus are quite experienced on the Dark Lord. And with a performance like that, it's... Here's my problem. Because I want to have hope for 0Practice here. I just think that 4K1 is the standard for Dark Lord, right? I think that's where, if we were drawing, because we saw a couple of draws yesterday, right? If we were starting to draw sets or anything like that, it would be on a 4K1 point, right? Every single time that like anything happens, it's a 4K1, you know? So I think, and here's my problem, the 0Practice survivors will also fall into the 4K1 trap, and Exodus could just win this outright. You know, they're super strong players. They obviously are very capable on the killer side. We saw that on the Hillbilly. And I think that they'll have it done on Dark Lord as well. So I'm even despite the heroics of 0Practice's killer Yumiko there, I still have Exodus taking this 2-0. I'm afraid to say.
I mean, can you really be making that 2-0 prediction when we are possibly one game away from that 2-0 coming true?
I mean, I made that prediction at the start, brother. I'm just
Fair
saying. I'm just
enough.
saying.
Fair enough. I'm the one who's like, well, now I'm kind of screwed. Um, but
Yeah.
no, I mean, yes, Exodus did get a 4K 0. However, that was a 4K 0 by like 1 second. So yes, it is the result that matters, whether it's by 1 second or 1 minute. But I don't think it's that clear cut.
There's a lot to there's a lot that we don't know, and there's still a lot that we'll have to actually see when the game comes up. I think it's the experience at the end that is really going to favor Exodus here, right? Um, it's just such a shame. And again, like the stakes for both of these teams as we go further and further on, will continue to kind of increase, right? You know, maybe right now they're not feeling the pressure that they necessarily should because they technically have that game in the bag, right? But remember that during Swiss, every single game matters and it matters exceptionally. You know what I mean? So they're
Absolutely.
feeling quite safe. They're feeling quite safe now because they have the distance from their elimination or their promotion. But you know, why leave that for the last minute when you could just deal with things right here and right now?
I mean, personally, I tend to be a bit of a procrastinator, but I get your point. Um, while we are waiting to load in, I was double checking balancing rules, and we talked in detail about the cross ping rules for Billy, but what about the cross ping rules for the Dark Lord? Well, here instead of 4 decisive strikes, we have 4 finesses allowed. And the killer can't bring pain resonance, which is why we saw Gift of Pain, because of those cross ping rules. Because I was looking at that perk and I was like, that doesn't seem normal for Dark Lord. And it isn't. It's the special rule set when we are playing on high ping. Just something I
Yeah,
thought was worth noting.
yeah, we are taking a while to get into this next game. We do apologize to everyone at home. There are some ping issues happening. We'll keep you updated, and hopefully we should be going in any second now. But yeah, the yeah, pain res banned, 4 finesses allowed. I don't believe that we actually saw any finesses. Finesse makes a lot of sense in a ping specific context because ping is going to the reason if people don't quite know, ping is if there's high ping, it generally favors the killer because like the game is kind of run from the killer's side, if that makes sense. That's like the primary server that's connected to, and then the survivors just kind of have to lag behind from there, right? Which means that, you know, hits on the killer's screen might be a bit more pronounced than hits on the survivor screen, but the most common place that we see it is with vaults, where on low ping, you know, the vaulting time, like the time that you can hit after a vault, say if you lunge into it, is very, very strict and very measured. Like if they're like if they do not have a pixel touching that window, then you are just not going to hit them after the vault. Not quite the case on ping. You can get away with some relatively egregious stuff. So um, having the finesse makes sense because it makes those hits a bit more consistent. But again, that's if they should wish to bring them. Speaking is really difficult, man. That's if they should wish to bring them.
You're a
I don't
caster, you
believe we
speak
saw.
for a living.
Yeah, it's part of the trade. Um, and they, you know, they didn't bring any finesses last time because you can bring such strong perks against a Dark Lord where it's like, well, why would I just bring a bunch of finesses along when I could have perks like, you know, I don't know, second wind, clean
It's that
break,
discussion we had about
adrenaline.
decisive strike. It's that same discussion we
But
had with
but
decisive strike.
decisive is infinitely stronger than finesse. You know what I mean? Like infinitely so.
Yeah.
They're not in the same category of perk.
Yeah, I mean, you are correct because finesse is a chase perk, decisive is a second chance perk. Speaking of second chances, this is the survivors of 0Practice. It is their second chance to put up a performance to get us out of match point for Exodus, put on a performance to get us into that tiebreaker. As we have Evan playing the Dark Lord into 0Practice, and already the stealth has been found out, and a very nice pallet drop from Good KN to help delay this very first hit. Not as important because we aren't on Oni, but important nonetheless. It is going to be back into the wolf form for Evan. No pallet here, so this should hit, but no, there's another pallet all the way at the cars. I didn't think we were going to make it, but now we're able to Good KN's able to make it to the kill shack, and Evan has to leave, go for another survivor. We have a survivor on the hill here, probably playing with balanced landing, gonna be trying to get that distance, but with the bat form, that distance doesn't matter as much. We do. Oh, this is not a good place to be. A hit with the Hellfire.
Now you're zoned.
And zoned. This is just gonna be a down in the comp corner.
Yeah, you know, even going for a last second dodge, Evan playing really safe there. Is able to get an eruption proc too, and the agitation as well. There seems to be a bit of a no-brainer. Drag this one all the way to the basement should you so wish, but instead you're just going to prioritize an early hook. Bit of a different build here. Everything the same except for Deadlock over Gift of Pain. Deadlock better at just like straight up regression. But I did actually quite like what the Gift of Pain was doing earlier. And it also seems like 2 gens are going to pop. No, probably just the one, because Alki's been found out. That Hellfire somehow doesn't hit. Really looked like on Evan's screen, had that angle there. This, however, doesn't quite have the angle with that one. Now Evan's just going to continue pursuing in bat form. Might be able to just straight get the down hit, and will. And this is perfect because you can afford now to get an extra hook onto Alki for pressure, but, you know, then continue your tunnel out onto Let Me Solo Chase. So granted, the heal has come out, so maybe the priorities of Evan are slightly misplaced.
Yeah, we do have a basement hook though, and we could see Evan play this one slightly differently. If he's able to protect it a little bit better and get there sooner, we could see a double Hellfire hit, and that is something I want to commend from Evan so far. I mean, we talked about it before this set that the Hellfire is very difficult to hit because it's just like that Punishment of the Damned that some of these players have been practicing against for half a decade. But Evan's already gotten 2 hits off, and I can see many more to come.
Yeah, that and obviously the punishment as well, you know. It's so, like, tricky to hit, but so, like, punished when it doesn't land. And now we've seen Alki taken out of the basement. Evan doesn't care, is still committing to Let Me Solo Chase. I mean, it would still be a tunnel out, of course. You can see the Deadlock in the background. It's really doing some work. And yeah, Evan right now just downloading the survivors with this Hellfire. We have a Firecracker save attempt that works!
You love to see it. Futile attempt. I have to disagree with you, Dracula. That seemed like a pretty good attempt at. Never mind.
Well, it bought about 10 seconds or so. You could always make the difference. Hey, the last gen was decided in a matter of half a second.
It was like 1 second, yeah. So those 10 seconds could end up mattering down the road, but we have yet another basement hook. The first one was able to get rescued scot-free because of this chase that just happened. But Let Me Solo Chase now on their second hook stage. This could spell trouble for 0Practice.
Yeah, Evan pops out of the bat form. I actually thought that someone would be so bold as to hide there, but no, just ends up taking the eruption proc and leaving instead. I feel like right now for Evan, your priority is seeing, do you have a 3-gen that you can isolate and identify, and then possibly control? Because remember, that's how you win this one, right? It's only the final generator that you really care about. You're gonna follow into basement. Now, are you able to charge up the Hellfire and get it in time? Oh, yes, you are! No, let me solo Chase is just completely dead in the water from that one. That's not just a 2-tap, bro. That's an instant tap. That's just a tap.
That is exactly what you were hoping for if you are Evan. Now into 3v1. 3 generators remaining. This is going to be, I'd say, damn near impossible for the survivors of 0Practice at this point. Especially a nice dodge from Alkali onto that Hellfire, but it is going to be the pounce coming through immediately after. And followed up by bat form, possibly into an M1. Evan gets a little, maybe not confused, but does switch his targets onto Yumiko, back into bat form, trying to chase after Alkali. Oh no, gets spotted at this pallet, trying to get back to that generator. Hellfire going to be coming in here any second now. It goes for the M1, but doesn't quite have the distance for it. Alkali just keeps on running. A nice dodge onto the Hellfire. Another generator gets completed. An amazing chase so far from Alkali, but it is the pounce from the wolf form that does him in. And this is going to be another basement hook, isn't it?
Bro is so paranoid of anyone maybe hiding there for the part save. But yeah, Alkali now in the basement. It's a horrid, horrid occasion. And also, Deadlock isn't just a slowdown, but it's also information, right? Because you know exactly where the most progressed gen is, and ergo, where the survivors are. Because, like, yeah, where the hell else would they be? You know, it looks like the survivors are trying to sort of 99 gens right now, but, you know, there's something a lot easier said than done, really. And you're continuing to chase down Yumiko here. And, you know, you don't get the down! Fantastic crouch check. Hang on. Crouch tech, I should say. Fantastic opportunity for survivors, but unfortunately Yumiko gets caught out with a Hellfire. Again, it's like Evan is just magnetic and so precise with these. And he's still super paranoid of Shack Pallet.
Yeah, you get saved, you get rescued once, and then
MFs when they get firecracker saved one time.
But we do have this unsafe generator finally getting done. Evan was really hoping to hold on to that, but it is going to be Good KN getting caught out. That was our first chase with Good KN since the very beginning, but now we have 2 injured survivors in the basement trying to get the save. But Alkali played a little cocky, didn't really have anywhere to go.
We caught Yumiko! We caught Yumiko as well! On the very latter end of the Hellfire, we got rid of the Endurance. And, oh no. Oh no. Alkali dead.
That is unfortunate.
Yumiko gone from the game now, and with Good Khan, who's going to be...
He was running in a straight line. I think that was a genuine disconnect. I saw that just running in a straight line. That's the telltale. Oh, that is unfortunate because now it is going to count as a 4K1. That is a tragic way to go out for 0Practice.
Yeah, I mean, they may be down, but it does have to be said that they're not out yet as ever. What are you doing, bro?
He's doing the little doggy dance.
Damn. What's my Dracula doing, dog? How are we getting 4K? How are they outing us and what my Dracula is doing the whole time? Yeah, outs at this stage are not going to matter. This is a completed game, even if Evan, for whatever reason, allows Good Khan to leave, which he will not, bluntly. Yeah, I mean, it's a very strong day at the office for Exodus. And a very tough time for 0Practice as well. But my prediction runs true, what can I say? NA on top and all that. I was just talking earlier about how much I love NA. as a region and how much I
Oh,
think they are really
sure. So someone's got
as
that
great
clipped.
as I
I
think
know
they are.
someone has clipped that. You calling NA a fake
I
region.
was literally just saying how much I love North America, bro. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, I get it. You're calling NA fake as in like the star League of Legends player Faker, who is the god's gift to esports or something.
Yeah, yeah,
Totally what you were going for.
that's definitely what I was going for. Anyway, big congratulations to Exodus for that one. They're going to be going 2-1 now, so one more victory and they're going to be through for good. On the flip side, 0Practice, they're going to start sweating now. One more loss. Next week they'll be going against another 1-2 team, and if they lose that one, then that's all for them. You have to pack it up and get sent home, and we've already had a team get sent home this weekend, so no one really wants to see that happening for them. That is all for but that's all for that 3 o'clock matchup, as we seem to be running relatively smoothly here. Exodus playing that fantastically. Especially credit to their killer side as well. Evans Dracula, very solid stuff. That's going to be not quite all from me, but all from you, Will. So if you wanted to do the honors of closing things out for this match.
Yeah, I thank you very much for having me. This was a very good showing. A bit of a ended with a bit of a whimper there, unfortunately. But I gotta say, despite the fact that Exodus kind of dominated in this match, there still was a very good showing from 0Practice, and whoever they play next does have to be wary because, like I said, they did play very well, and I think this team has a long ways to go in this event.
Yeah. Well,
But
thanks for joining us, Will, especially in the circumstances. Again, a grinder till the end. That's why we call him Big Williawesome. Ascent versus Aegis going to be our next matchup. Also cross ping should be starting shortly, and Rich is going to join me on the caster desk for that one. So thank you so much for joining us for that matchup. We're going to send it to a break, and when we're back, we'll have Ascent versus Aegis in another 1-1 best of 3 match. So don't go anywhere. We'll be back shortly.